Hi, welcome to today's Tuesday Pulse. I'm Chuck Boyce with Cibi Creative, and today we want to talk about Don't Trust the Demo. It's questions for clients and vendors, and it's aimed really at the people who are purchasing an AI solution who see a really cool demo, but it can also be valid for anybody who is selling an AI solution to understand what questions clients may be asking you during or after the demo. So every tool you watched, it's really great. It's all talking about what's behind the demo because when you see a demo, it's in a controlled environment. It's been tested so it runs smoothly. Sometimes demos fail. If you've ever done one on a presentation, they normally don't always work, but in general they do. And so, again, I don't focus on tools themselves. I try to stay tool agnostic. Not here to sell you anything. I will cover two popular products to show what they don't say in the demo, just so you can be aware of things that you should ask and look at the frameworks when you want to evaluate a potential solution. So, right now, 58%, this is some stats pulled out of current polls in various sources, but they're saying 58% of the businesses are now using generative AI. Most of that is with just doing content creation, doing some research, doing image creation and stuff like that. And there are other tools that people use, and most of them, if they're a bigger tool or a specialty tool, they probably didn't run a readiness check first. And so if you're in the 58%, this will help you evaluate what you already purchased and see if it's really working for you or not. And if you're in the 40% who haven't made a move yet, here's what you can learn and maybe prevent a bad purchase. So here's the reality. The message that says AI is a utility now, plug it in and go, it's not wrong. It's become really genuinely useful, pretty predictable, and it has good results. The problem is who gets left or what gets left out of the pitches. The email doesn't make decisions about your customers. The tools do. And so you have to make sure that the tools are not making a bad impression on your company. And so most lists, you've probably seen a lot of lists out there right now, the top 10 tools for AI right now. Everybody does them. They're well researched. They're talk about features and pricing and ease of use, but they don't cover the truth about the business, your business, before the works. And so how the tool needs to be adapted to your business to make it useful. And that's what they don't cover because every business is unique and people will apply their tool in different manners. So by the end of this, what I want to give you is a few different tools. One is a readiness scorecard, which I'll be going over, fill in about probably less than 20 minutes, but could take you as long as 20 minutes depending on how in depth you go. It's a 5-question lens is another one. Again, just you can apply to any tool before you spend the cash on it. And you could use this with every best of 2026 list that you can find right now. And so I'm just not going to tell you if the tools are good or bad, just what is out there and hopefully prevent you from making a big mistake. The tools I'm going to talk about aren't these that expensive, but if you're coming in with a custom AI tool that's going to modify your processes or improve your processes, you may be spending $5, $10, $20,000 on a tool, and make sure you make that right decision. So this isn't a tutorial or anything. This is just things to look for before you make that purchase. So the readiness check. Most projects don't fail because the tool is bad. It's because readiness was assumed. And this is the stuff that doesn't make it into the vendor guides. Most of you with a small market or a small to medium-sized business, you adopt tools spending 2 to 3 times more than what was expected because they give you a single subscription cost, but they don't talk about how much time is going to be spent on setup, training, and maintenance in the first 60 days. And so the tools aren't bad, but the readiness was assumed, not verified. And so realistically, you can expect to spend 2 to 3 times the subscription cost of an app once you get it into production or getting it ready to get into production. And so I'm going to walk through 5 different areas, and I consider them gates. And each gate, if you can't pass it, the tool won't fix it. It'll just magnify the problems. And so before you evaluate any tool, pass the gate. The underlying problems are faster and louder if you don't fix the problem before you try to implement it. And so, again, the AIs are normally very solid, but your business may not be. And so there's some people who have implemented things that they were really excited about, and they come to realize that once it's started, it still looks good. They start to see the little roadblocks, the stumbling blocks, and then it's not living up to the expectations because their business was not ready for it. And so gate 1 is going to be about your processes. And so your processes. Can anyone on your team or you specifically describe the workflow step by step the same way every time? Now think about a workflow that you may be thinking about automating and hold that in your mind. And so depending on if you have a process in your business and you ask that question, you might get an answer of, it depends on who's doing it. It mostly works. I think I can. But if you don't have that process, you have a habit. And so the habits can change. And if it's not documented, it's not a consistent process. And so AI is a pattern matching tool or app. And so if you don't have consistent patterns, AI is not going to be able to follow those patterns. And so if you want consistent output, you need consistent input. It won't scale and it won't be a confident result if you don't have a consistent pattern for AI to follow. And again, if you don't have something, it's going to magnify the outputs as a bad output. And so a customer service workflow, there's 3 different people that handle escalations. There may be 3 different ways to approach it. A customer service workflow written with a decision tree, everyone follows, that can be automated. So a minimal viable step is 1 page. Just write out your workflow, every step, who does it, what triggers it, what the output is, what happens when something goes wrong. The document is your prerequisite. I always say documented standard operating procedures. The next gate is about your data. The data is, where does your data live? And it's most likely, if you're not consistent, in places you don't expect it to be. For most, it should be a CRM, and it may be a spreadsheet somebody made 2 years ago. It may be an email, it may be a Google Doc, it may be a Notion, someplace somebody knows, but it may not be consistent. There's always a note app somewhere, could be on your phone, but if it's not in a central storage place, it's not going to be consistent. And so AI tools need to connect to the data, and it's only good as the data is. And so if you don't have complete and consistent data, AI is not going to be able to utilize that, and it's going to be really confident giving you wrong answers because it's based on poor data. And so it's not about being perfectly organized. It's just knowing which data sources that you can trust, making sure it's current, consistent, and accessible. And so the next one is where a bunch of people skip entirely because it's not a technical problem. It's a people problem. And so now when you bring AI into your business, it is not a set and forget tool. You need to have somebody who owns it. The tool is running, people are using it, but if something goes wrong and people say, I don't know what went wrong, do you go to the vendor or do you go to an internal owner of that process? Difference between a tool who uses a tool who owns it, because if something goes wrong, if a workflow breaks, if somebody finds a workaround, it's not, they're different jobs. And if somebody doesn't say, that's mine, I'm going to fix it, it's not going to get fixed. And so you get into that slippery slope of trusting and non-trusting, and people, if your employees start seeing inconsistent results. They're going to not use the tool and go back to old ways. And so habits are hard to change, but if you bring in a tool and people don't use it, it's not going to be helping. And so vendor demos never talk about the people and who owns the processes. Again, if you're putting AI into a solution, those prompts change, those models may change. You have to understand what models are being used, how the prompts work, who's using them, and where it could possibly break. You need an AI owner. Next is the costs. Now, they normally talk about your subscription fee. It's normally a set price, and it's usually reasonable, and it's usually per seat per month. And so it sounds great. $30 a month or $50 a month or $99 a month. And then they don't talk about all of those things in the background, such as what your API costs are going to be or your token fees. And so if something that happened with the people when vibe coding first came out, that they'd build these tools and then they'd put them onto the marketplace and they'd say unlimited use, and then suddenly they started seeing that their unlimited use when they were developing it was, oh, that's not too bad, I can handle that. But then if people start using it heavily, suddenly your $40 a month of what you thought was your subscription is turning into $400 a month because of token usage or an API cost or a database backend. And so if you're not aware of that, or if your vendor doesn't tell you that there's going to be additional costs and give you an idea of what those costs are going to be, you'll be shocked. Sticker shock is a bad thing. And if you have a tool and you're not aware of it, be aware, because there's most likely going to be extra charges for token usage. And not only that, data storage, you have to understand where the data is being stored. Is it stored on your local, or is it stored at the vendor? Where is that data going? Who owns it? What are the terms of service about data retention? These are paranoid, but due diligence, there's all sorts of things about who has access to that data, where is it stored, what are the privacy policies based around that data. And then there's also the maintenance time, internal costs, the personnel hourly rate of who's maintaining these after it's been implemented. So if you get a new team member, or you're adding a new user or some access privilege to your tool, is that going to break something else? And is it going to have a snowball effect of how that app is being implemented in your business? And so don't be surprised if your AI costs are escalating rapidly as time goes on, as the models change. Some prices go down, some go up, but it's not going to stay consistent. Last gate is compliance. Now here is, if you're in any professional services, whether it's financial or healthcare or anything that is regulated or viewed by the government as something that you have to be careful about, this is not optional. And I went through last week, I talked about compliance and all of the various things you can do to protect yourself. You don't need heavy legal documents. You just need to document what you're doing. And so, do you have a paper trail? If something goes wrong with a client, a regulator, or an attorney, do you have a simple AI usage policy? If you just have a simple document that says, here's where we use AI, here's where we don't, you have some deniability or some proof that you've thought about this. And so it's not just going to be like, oh, I don't know what that was. And so does your team know about this? And do you have a consistent place to store all of your policies around this? AI is fast and convenient. Nobody told them what to do. It's like, where does the data go if you connect your tool to your system? Retention, things like that. Have that written down in a policy. Now, another problem with the compliance is the people who use what's shadow AI. And so you may have AI in your business, but your employee may be using ChatGPT or Claude on the side. They have a personal account and they dump a client file to do some analysis in their personal account, and they don't have any of the structure around privacy that that client data is now in ChatGPT, and if they have train with my data turned on, suddenly that client data is in ChatGPT, accessible to many. And so just be careful about where your data is going and who has access to it and what they're doing with AI. So here's the brief readiness scorecard. And while I'm talking about this, just think about doing this in your head or on a piece of paper right now and rate your business and give honest answers for your processes. Is it a 1? Not yet. Is it a 2, that some standard operating procedures exist, or 3, documented and consistent? And so not yet, partial or solid. Go through, think about your processes, your data, stored across multiple scattered, one place, owned, clean, maintained, people, no owner, informal ownership, clear accountability. Do you have true costs? Is it partially budgeted, or you understand what everything is going to be? In compliance, do you have any policy? Is it just informal awareness or written and trained? And so if you can do this little matrix and your score is under 10, don't buy an AI tool to implement or automate or improve a process without being a 10 to 15. Now, if you're a solid 15, go for it. Low stakes, you have owners, you have policies, you're in good shape. And so just use this as a lens to understand how close you are to being realistic about understanding what AI is going to, how the impact it's going to have on your business. The 5 questions that you can ask. I'm going to give you downloads of both the previous and this here. And so the 5 questions for every vendor conversation, every trial, every team discussion about whether to add something new. Number 1 is, what specific problem does this replace? Not what will it help with? Not what task is going to be done by which person, how many times a week, and what happens when it stops. If you can't answer that, back up. 2, what does the implementation actually take? Who configures it? How long is it going to take? What has to be true before it works? Do you have KPIs set? Do you have measurable outcomes? The answer is always longer than the best vendor estimates. And so they may say we can start getting you data in 30 days. Realistically, it might take 60 or 90 days. And so get a realistic time frame from the vendor. Number 3, who has to change how they work and by how much? Are your employees going to be threatened because their work is changing or some tasks that they're doing are being eliminated? So again, who is going to be doing the work, or how much is their job going to change? Adoption, where most implementations die. And so if the tool requires behavioral change, make sure you have training set and you have an understanding of how it's going to impact their job. 4 are, what are the real costs? Is it subscription only? Or is there going to be API fees or token fees? Is there going to be storage? Is there going to be maintenance time? Who's going to do that maintenance? And training. Who's going to do the training? How are you modifying your business to make sure your employees' work and the product that you're implementing stays operational? And the last one, 5, is what happens when it's wrong? Who catches it? Because the silent errors can go on and snowball and multiply and compound over time. And so if you don't have somebody monitoring and managing that, again, in a demo, the vendor won't be able to answer that. And so you have to be able to understand what happens when it's wrong and who's going to catch it. Again, goes back to having an AI champion on your team to be responsible for what's happening in the AI world. So now, looking at tools, let's first look at Jasper. Jasper, if you're a writer, Jasper is pretty popular out there. It's been around for one of the longer AI tools out there right now. And so it works, it's great, thousands of people use it. And so, but what they say doesn't necessarily mean how it's going to impact your business. And so for your AI creative team, does it keep your brand voice consistent and produce content at scale? And so It's great for first drafts, blog posts, emails, social content. It's not a final review. It's not strategy. It's helping you draft. And if it's trained well enough, which you do have to train, the drafts can be pretty close to being final copy, but you should always have that human in the loop. And so before it produces anything useful, you have to feed it, you have to train it, you have to give it your brand guidelines, your tone of voice examples, your offer details, content boundaries. What do you want it to sound like? What you don't want it to sound like? That takes time. That's your implementation reality. I've watched people 2 to 3 weeks just getting the inputs right before they actually use it. That's not a flaw, and that's not in the demo. It's just something that you have to be aware of. You have to train AI to work for you. And then there's who changes the content from writing to prompting and reviewing. For some people, it's a better job. For others, it's people who are already stretched. And so if you have somebody who's a writer and suddenly they say, I'm on Jasper, are they also going to be not only responsible for the writing, but for maintaining how Jasper works? Is that going to be extra work on them? Or is it going to be a new role that people are playing in your business? Subscription costs, the time to manage inputs, reviewing inputs, that's not included in the demo. So take a brief message, take your messiest briefs and your most ambiguous scenario and run it through a trial. If it takes you 45 minutes of editing after, did Jasper really make a difference? So again, just make sure it's clean. And again, with AI, Jasper is very confident. It's a feature. It's also a risk, because if you don't have a human in the loop and you're creating client proposals or making a claim about a service that you're offering and it doesn't quite match up, the client can come back to you. And as in a previous session I did, it was talking about, I was talking about the legalities, and the state laws are now taking precedence over if you have a client in one state and you're in another and you make an ambiguous claim and it's in the state laws where the client is, they can come back to you with legal comeback. And so make sure that you have human in the loop. It's, again, Jasper's really good, has value, but it needs to be trained. It needs to have an owner. You need to have human in the loop reviews. If you don't, it just makes messiness faster. And now going to tool 2, which is another one that's everywhere, Zapier. And the same can be said for Make. These are your automation tools. And when you read Zapier's ads, it's the central nervous system of your business. We can connect 9,000 plus apps and eliminate all these repetitive tasks. Yes, it can. And it works really well. I actually use Make more than Zapier, and that was just because cost and things like that. But anyway, for basic automation, moving data, triggering actions, connecting tools, it's great. 90% of the cases, it's worth pursuing. It's a really useful tool. However, when you get into the AI agent layer, it's different. A basic Zap moves data. You have a trigger, takes the input, and it moves it to another app and does something with it. When you add AI, then it starts saying it's going to read the email, classify what the intent is, decide where to route it, and then it drafts a response. Useful, but at any point, if it's misconfigured, it's not going to be correct. And so every automation you build has a maintenance cost and doesn't show up in the pitch. Zapier is like, yep, just do it, but you have to maintain this. Again, you're looking at the models that you're connecting to, and you're looking at the prompts that is manipulating the data or augmenting the data. And so if you put in a new promotion and it's an edge case and it wasn't designed to catch that, suddenly Zapier's Zap is not working as predicted because you suddenly introduced an edge case you didn't think about. And so somebody has to go in, modify that workflow, modify the Zap, modify the AI prompt behind it. And so there's training, and it's, again, the owner. If you have somebody who knows AI and owns that process and understands it, it can be a non-issue, but most people don't have that. And so Zapier's pricing tiers are reasonable at low volume. Once you get into higher volume, if you start testing it and you're saying you're running 20 things through Zaps and you're budgeting that it's going to cost, oh, this is great. I'm paying 17 cents for this. I can really deal with that. But then suddenly you start running 30 or 50 or 100 of these processes and your cost goes from 17 cents to $17 or something like that, and you didn't plan for that, then you have that extra cost. And then there's the silent failure I mentioned before about what happens when something goes wrong, and is there going to be a flag set somewhere? Is it a missed lead, a wrong email, a routing error, something I just drops into the unknown because it hit an edge case? And so monthly reviews, logging, if nobody's checking the logging and running on faith, you don't know if there's a silent error and things are going wrong. And so start small, do 2 or 3 automations, low stakes internally, don't connect to client data at first. If you're lead capture to a CRM, appointment confirmations, internal notifications, run those for a month or 2 and then find the pattern, see what it's really going to cost, and then have it affect your bottom line or your clients. But until you can prove it, then don't involve anything that's going to have a potential negative impact on your business. So the 3 questions that you want to have before you get any AI tool is make those readiness gates on. The 5-question lens tells you how to evaluate, and the 3 questions ask out loud before you approve is, what will this replace? Not assist, not augment, replace. If you don't have that specific task and the answer is vague, push back until you have a specific answer. 2 is what happens when it's wrong. This is a big one because it could affect your bottom line. It could have legal issues. The question that separates an evaluation from demo enthusiasm. If AI tool is wrong, it's not a fact, it's not criticism, but you need to be able to catch it. Review it, name a person, have the process owned. If you don't have the error level, you don't have logging, it's just going to be a problem that you won't be able to find. It's not useful. And the last one is, what does success look like? Do you have an actual KPI or a measurable outcome? Do you have something documented that says, here's the process that we had manually. It took this person X amount of hours, and at that rate, that process cost us $37 every time we did it. And now we're replacing that with AI. Do you have measurable KPIs that you can say, it now costs us X amount? Is it less than the $37 that it costs manually, or is it a true cost savings, or is it a wash? Is it worth having in? And so you need to have measurable results. And if you don't have that, you're just going to be guessing. And so the more you can document, the more you can measure, the better your results are going to be. So you don't need more tools. You just need clarity on what you're doing and seeing if AI is going to actually help. Use the scorecard. Start, not ambitious, with one workflow, low impact, no customer impact, no financial impact. See if it works. Get used to it. Understand what's necessary. Get your people trained. Have an owner. Pilot it for 60 days. Find out what your measurable outcomes are. Build some KPIs and then evaluate. And before you invest, make sure that it works before you put a lot of money into it. And so those top lists are real. They show you the tools that are good, easy to use, low price points, but having all those other price points that they don't mention in your mind before you do it, a little extra work ahead of time is going to save you potentially a lot of money in the future. So I'm going to give you, in fact, here, let me go here and share copy. I'll put this into the chat right now if you want to get a copy of those workflows right now, or those two scorecards and the evaluation card. You can see those. Again, this is not a sales deck. It's just a scorecard. It's not a product recommendation. Just utilize these. And if you want to find out how ready your business is, I have a 30 or a 20-point checkpoint for assessment at cbcreative.com. And you can always call me and set up a 30-minute call to find out if something's going to work for you. And so this was short and sweet, hopefully useful, and save you some money in the long run. Again, whether you're a client or a vendor, be aware of these types of questions, especially the hidden costs, the training, the maintenance, who's going to own it, and what happens when things go wrong. Vendors won't cover that. Make sure that you ask them about those. And so on that, I am going to stop sharing and